Good afternoon. It's just before 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. The warmest day of the year so far, but as Kate, I can't remember her name, sorry, Kate, from Greatest Hits Radio, said that it's been a very low bar up to now, but it's been a lovely day. Before this, Della was out walking her dogs. My husband was out walking ours, so he's the dog, not the husband, is in his bed behind my chair snoozing away. And I'm delighted. We've known each other for quite some time, from back in the day, and I've been on one of her short story courses down in Dorset, where her books are set. So I'm joined today by English writer, British writer, Della Galton, who started with short stories women's magazines. And I used to go, and I'm sure I've told you this before, Della, that I used to look at, I always wanted to be a women's magazine short story author, and I could have been back in the day, and I still could, I suppose. I need to just get my act together. I'd go through, I'd buy all the as they were back in 2005, Women's Weekly, Woman's Own, Woman, and so on, and they all had short stories in them. And I'd be going through, and this is a family, so I won't use the whole word. This I don't know, this isn't technically for made for kids, but I never know who the audience is going to be. And I'd go, oh, Della beep beep Galton again, because you were so prolific. And I think one quote was 400 and something. It was probably, and I don't know how old that quote was, that stories you had published in women's magazines. But we'll start as we always do, right at the beginning. So before the women's magazine short stories, can you remember the first thing you wrote? Did you enjoy reading and writing at school?
Yes, I can, and thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome.
And I my grandmother taught me to read before I actually got to school because I don't know why, but I loved it. I loved reading,
Mm.
and I remember she had to prove it once to my uncle, my mother's brother, because no one believed her, and so she made me read some things out of the newspaper. I obviously don't remember this, but it
No.
was a family story. So I've always loved reading
Mm.
and I still love reading and I've always written. And the very first thing I had published, I can remember because it was a poem and it was in Pony magazine. And I'm pretty sure I was about 8 and I'm pretty sure they only published it because I was about 8.
Right.
Don't think it
Bless.
had any literary merit.
Right.
But I wish I had it still. I haven't. I don't have it anymore.
Oh, you're not going to make you go on eBay and look. I suppose you wouldn't remember which edition it would be, and the
No.
chances of, because who keeps magazines from back in the day other than the magazine themselves, I suppose.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny actually because I also didn't have a copy of the very first short story I sold, and I did try going on eBay and looking for that with no
Mm.
success. But that was in 1987, the first short story, so that's going back a bit as well.
Isn't it?
And I wish I had a copy of that. I don't even have a copy on the computer anymore,
No, no. Oh,
which is
so
sad.
you are prolific. You still are prolific. So we'll be talking about your novels. Do you write all the time? I know you have a busy life because you do talks and events and workshops and things. Do you have a set routine of, right, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to write for 3 hours and then nothing else is going to disturb me? Or is
Yeah.
that wishful? Oh, good.
Yes, I do.
Okay, is that wishful thinking?
No. I'm really disciplined actually. And when I started doing it full time, I can tell you about that if you like, because it
Oh,
might be
do.
interesting to other writers. But
Mm.
I was working. I got published in 1987. That was my first one, but that was a long time before I started full time. And then I just wrote for women's magazines. And the reason I did that, so this is going back a bit, is because I joined a creative writing class in 1987,
Mm.
which was called Writing for Pleasure and Profit. And it was run by a lady called Jean Dines, who wrote and I don't think she wrote a lot for Writers Forum. I'm not sure if she still does columns anymore for any of the other writing magazines,
Mm.
but she ran creative writing classes. So I joined in 1987, and the very first week I was there, Jean said, "Does anyone have any success to report, writing success?" And a lady stood up and she said, "I've just sold my 27th short story this year."
Wow.
This would have been in the September, because that's bearing in mind that it was adult education.
Mm,
And I just looked at her and I thought, I want to do that. And her name was Tina Wade, and she used to be quite a prolific writer as well, obviously.
mm,
So that's what started me off. And I decided to try and get a short story in the magazine that Tina Wade wrote for, which was called Loving, which was a confession magazine for
right.
teenagers.
Okay.
So that was the story, and off I went, and I did sell quite quickly, and I remember thinking, oh, the profits come in quite quickly.
Mm,
However, it isn't never as simple as that, is it?
no.
And I think I sold the first one I sent off, and the second and the third, and then not the fourth or the fifth or the sixth or
Right.
the seventh, and it's kind of goes like that. It's a huge roller coaster, emotionally.
Because I did think at the time that because you were getting published so often, that you were that pretty much everything you wrote was published. But then when we met, I mean, this is a long time ago, but when we met, you said, "Oh no, I've written so many more than have been published." Um,
Yeah, I think we can see the outside, can't we, sometimes, and we can feel like quite envious because someone appears to be doing really well. But the reason I was doing so well is because I wrote so many stories, and I think it's a numbers game. When I in 2000, when I decided to try and do it full time, that was the time that I started. I decided to give up my job and really go for it.
mm,
And I worked in a water company, Bournemouth Water Company, as customer services manager back then. But before I decided to go full time, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I decided to work out whether it was practically possible to do it and how much I would need to earn.
sure.
So I did what I called a 28-week plan, and I wrote a short story a week. I was working full time, but I wrote a short story a week for 28 weeks. And at the end of 28 weeks, I gave it a little bit of time extra. I worked out how many I sold, and I'd sold 68% of the stories of the 28.
Right.
Not the first time out, but
Yeah.
sooner or later. And so I
Yeah.
decided that, that being the case, if I needed to sell six a month, which I would,
Mm,
I'd need to write 12, because then that would give me a bit of leeway. And then if I
yes.
sold 50%, I should be able to make a living.
Right.
That's what I did. So I called it the 28-week plan, and it worked. I did exactly that. So I then wrote um, three short stories a week, and also edited the ones that came back. And that's what I did for years and years and years. And I never did less than that. I would have like 50 out at a time.
Wow.
And obviously, I didn't sell them all by any means, but I sold a really high percentage, because if they came back, which they did,
Mm,
I did work out the statistics once on what I sold first time out, and it was something quite low, about 40%.
okay.
But then I eventually, when they'd gone out again and again, I would sell about 98%. There was never completely all of them. And sometimes that would take me 10 years for one story.
Wow. Well, I'm in, I can't remember who runs it now, um, but WOMAG writers Facebook group.
Yeah, yeah,
And every now and then it comes up on my feed in the groups. And it'll be, has anybody heard from such and such, or such and such magazine, or I finally got my payment for something that was accepted, because I think back in the day you were paid on acceptance,
yeah,
and then it changed to paid on publication because there was such a backlog. And obviously that's a better business model for the magazines, that they don't pay you until it's published, which makes more sense. And
yeah,
so many of them, they were either stopping the fiction altogether, or like Women's Weekly, I know and My Weekly, they stopped accepting anything from anybody who hadn't published them with them before. And so I was finding more and more doors, and I just let life take
mm.
over, really. I think had I got my shoe in early on, it probably would have been easier.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I mean,
do you find that things have changed? We will get onto your novels in a minute, but do you find that as technology and the digital process changed, that there were more opportunities?
Well, it's interesting because going back to 1987 when I first got my first one in, there were about 100 markets for fiction. And
Mm,
then in 2000, by the time that came round, I know exactly how many there were. There were 21 for fiction. So it had dropped down and down and down. And I remember saying to someone, a friend of mine who was a writer, I'm going to try and do this full time. And she said, you won't be able to because there's only 21 places. And
wow.
I said, I will. And she said, I'll eat my hat if you do. And it was quite interesting because I did make a success of it.
Mm.
Um, but then the markets dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped.
I
And
mean,
now I think there's four or five. It's crazy.
wow. Well, we're lucky, aren't we, that we speak a language that is so worldwide.
Yeah.
Even the non-native, sort of India, they love anything in English. And I have a friend in Germany who she much prefers books in the original language. So I will take her every time I go over. I will take her, or Christmas and birthdays. I send books by English authors,
Yay.
because she prefers them in their original language. But obviously, also there are Australian magazines that have fiction in, South African, and all over, um, the Canada, obviously in America. Um, but even so, I've seen from 2005 to even a decade ago that it had changed
Yeah.
dramatically. The opportunities weren't there so much.
I have a feeling that the Australian one closed. That was really good.
Right.
And I think the South African one did too in the end.
Mm,
And
yeah.
it's just, I think, the internet, obviously, and the fact that you can well, you don't have to buy fiction, you can just download it freely. So why would you want to pay for it? I think that's
And
had
it's so
quite a,
quick. You don't
yeah,
have to wait for the magazine to be sent to you
yeah.
anymore.
It's sad, actually. It's really
It is.
sad, Morgan.
Yeah. So had you ever thought, obviously you'd started off with short stories, as I had, and had you ever thought you might then write something longer, write a novella or a novel? Was it
Yeah.
something you'd always wanted to do?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
quite quickly actually, I wrote a novel way back when it wasn't as early as 1987, but it was pretty early. Because at the time I was doing secretarial work. That's right, for a project management company who were building a building in Bournemouth. This must be about 30 years ago. And we had like a porter cabin on site, and I was left to my own devices a lot. I had a computer, and I didn't have a computer at home because you didn't have computers in those days. And I said, could I borrow the computer? Well, basically, I said, could I stay on an hour every day and write this novel I want to write? And they said, yeah, fine, just lock up when you go.
Sure.
So I did, and I wrote 1,000 words a day for 60 days. That was
Wow.
because it was 60,000 that was
Yeah.
wanted back then. And
Right.
at the weekends, I used to take the whole computer home. It was a massive, great big thing. It was huge, and they said it was fine. I could take home weekends,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I did, and I did that. That was my first novel that I ever wrote.
Wow. Was that
Needless
ice
to
ice in a slice? Was that okay?
say.
What was your
No,
first novel?
it was called Prisoners, and it was absolutely diabolically
Oh,
bad.
yeah, I've got a couple of those. They're in my proverbial bottom drawer.
I've got a
Yeah.
copy of that somewhere on paper.
Right.
I think I have.
Okay.
I have definitely haven't got it on a computer anywhere.
No.
And it didn't even make sense, but because I
Right.
wrote it at top speed, 1,000 words a day, I was just
Yeah.
on the case,
Yeah. But
and it was
isn't
fairly
it
bad.
great though to have a deadline, to know that you've only got an hour to get something, especially
Yeah,
if you're aiming for 1,000 words a
yeah,
day.
yeah.
It gives you more clarity than say, the worst thing anybody can do if they want me to do something is say, oh, just get it back to me whenever you like. No, I need a date. Give me a date and I'll get it back to you.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
Dead like Della.
Yeah. So what was your first publication, the first book that was published?
Well, because that was the first book I ever wrote, and then I wrote another one, a second one, which was a children's book that never saw the light of day. Then I wrote another one, which was a dark, dark issues book that never saw the light of day. Although,
No.
in fact, I sent it to Judith Murdoch way back then,
Yes.
and she was I sent it to
Scary,
the
scary, Judith.
agent.
I did
Scary.
an agent one-to-one with her at Winchester Writers the one year I went, because I knew Jane Wenham Jones really well.
Oh,
And so she said, "Oh, come down to the conference." And we were talking about Winchester before. So the last time I've been was for a friend's wedding, and And yes, so I had I can't remember who the other lady was. Um, she was JJ. I remember her names Jane something. Anyway, two agents. I had one-to-ones, and he paid an extra something for to have one-to-ones. And Judith, she was lovely actually, and but she was quite scary, but she was lovely to me.
She became my agent ultimately, but funnily, I bet she doesn't remember. But I sent this book to her amongst other places. She was one of the very few people that gave me a reply.
Right.
She just wrote on it, I could never publish a book with so horrible a theme
Oh,
because it was about murdering your mother.
right,
So it was pretty horrible and
right.
not you know, it
Yeah,
certainly
but how
wasn't
many
like
books have been published where characters Psycho? Well, no,
really,
Psycho.
yeah.
Yeah, Psycho's not quite the same, but yeah, just yeah,
Wasn't her thing. It wasn't light
right.
entertainment. But she did actually respond and she did write a handwritten thing on a compliment stick.
Which is
And I
very
and
rare.
I thought, oh well, you know, never mind.
Yeah.
And I thought so then the next thing I did, and this was really good advice, it was really good advice from another writer. I used to know Anne Ashurst, who wrote with Sarah Craven, who's a Mills and Boon writer. She's gone now. She passed away a few years back.
Right.
But she said to me, she was a fantastic Mills and Boon writer, and she also won the first ever woman to win Mastermind. She was Anne was. Anyway, she was so bright, and she said to me one day, "What do you want to write, Della?" So I was desperate to get a book published, and I said, "I want to write about animal rights." And Anne said, well, in that case, write a pamphlet. She was really dismissive about that idea. So don't do that. You've got to, you must remember, or was exactly what she said. Never forget we're in the entertainment industry. That's what she
Mm,
said.
mm,
And so write something that people want to read.
yeah.
So I tried it. I did what she said, and I wrote a book which started as a serial for Women's Weekly because I was into serials at the time. It
Mm,
failed as a serial actually.
right.
And then I wrote it as a novel, and it became a book called Passing Shadows, which was the first book I ever had published.
Okay.
And it was published by Accent Press, but it was a romance. And so that was my first book. That was in 2005 that
Oh,
came out. Hmm, it's
I'm just
amazing.
looking at your Amazon page. Yes, it's there as £3.25 for a paperback.
It's actually been taken down. It technically says that they will
Right.
only have the
Yeah,
paperbacks
they've got
there.
one left in stock. So that could be worth a lot more on eBay. I don't know if you've ever looked for yourself on eBay. One of my books, which you can buy on Amazon, and I
Mm,
don't even know whether it's signed or not.
mm,
Somebody's got it up for 100 and something because they're all a lot of third-party sellers as well.
yeah,
Got it up for 100 and something pound, which is very flattering, but nobody would ever pay that much for it.
you
Crazy.
never know.
Yeah, Helter Skelter. Moving on, I remember.
Yes,
And then,
because
yes, Linford Romance Library, Keeping Secrets.
they were all of the oh yeah, they were all the large print ones, weren't they? The
Mm.
Linford Romance.
Yeah,
I sold them quite a few actually.
yeah. Yes, you got 52 titles. Oh, one in
Have I?
Greek.
Greek.
Yes.
Greek. Have I? I've got one in Italian. I've got an Italian title. I don't know about a Greek one. Oh, I've also got a
Something
Russian one.
Becca. Something, it's got XX, what, that's 21. Becca. I
I
don't
don't know
know,
what
you
that
have to
is.
have a look on your page. It's got two ladies. There's a green strip, a brown strip, or sort of orangey strip, and then a picture in the middle with two women having coffee. And I don't know what the first word is, but it's then something XXI, which is 21, and then Becca, BEKA. I don't know. It's on,
Nor do
yes.
I. I'll have to have a
I'm
look.
clicking on it now to have a look.
I don't know what that
Of
is.
course, the Russian edition. Sorry,
Ah,
it's Russian.
Russian. Yes, that's
Yes,
me. Yes,
I
that's right.
the author name is None, None.
Okay, I have
It's
got
on
a
your
Russian
page.
book out. I wasn't going to tell anyone about that, but this was
Oh,
a book of short stories.
right.
That they commissioned that. How on earth did that happen? I can't remember, but I got commissioned to write it and I got paid.
Mm,
And it was to teach people English. So they had the English version of my short stories, 10 of them, and then
right.
the Russian version.
Ah.
And that was, I remember saying to Judith at the time, because I was with Judith Murdoch then, and saying, do you want to get involved with this? And she said, no, 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 you sort that
No.
out.
Right.
And I had, so I'm actually published in Russia.
Wow. Well, yeah, it's available on your page on next to Facing the Future and
That's
Duck Pond Cottage
Linford.
5, which is
Oh,
22.99 for a hardcover.
wow, that's
No
expensive.
picture. This title will be released on March the 2nd, 2027.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, I haven't
Yeah.
written that one. Well, I don't think so. Because lately, yeah, so what have I been doing lately? Oh, I've had a few different publishers actually. One of them was Accent Press. They
Mhm.
did my first ones,
Yeah, I think
and
there are a
um,
few people. It was Sue Moorcroft with Accent.
she may well have been. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure. I
think a
mean,
few of the core
short
romance
story
writers were
writers.
back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Sue
Yeah.
Moorcroft is amazing, isn't she?
Yeah.
And I really respect her as a writer.
Well, she's always
Very.
had a business head because I've known her since not school, but I
Hmm.
did when I moved to Northampton 1991, or 1999 more. I was going to evening classes, and she did a short story um, part of a degree course
Hmm.
I went on, and she's always had a business. I think you need to have a
You
business
do,
head on.
yeah, yeah.
You
Same.
need to treat it like a job. Get up at
Yeah,
X, be at your desk X till Y,
yeah.
and then Z happens thereafter.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same because, that's why I did that business, that 28-week plan before I left my full-time job because I
Mm,
had my full-time job back in 2000 was I was the customer services manager of the water company
mm,
and I earned loads of money. I earned about 26,000 back then, I think, which was quite a
wow.
lot back in 2000. And the
Mm,
first year that I digital story writing, I earned 26,000 from it the first
wow.
year. And then another four from from teaching because I was teaching as well. But
Right.
only I think I had 3 classes a week teaching back then.
Wow.
So yes, short story writing was incredibly lucrative back in the day.
Mm. And
But then
rewarding emotionally, I think.
I love it.
Having your yes. There's nothing quite like it, is there? I keep saying to Tim, there's nothing I really must get back to writing because there's nothing quite like it. But don't we find other things? Well, I do. I'm terrible finding other things to do.
I'm quite disciplined. Now because I'm writing novels, which is I do enjoy because you've got more to get your teeth into. And it
Mm,
is harder work though, because for me, part of the short story thing was about writing a short story, sending it off, and then obviously sending off a lot because I'd be sending out 4 or 5 a week anyway, with the 3 new ones and the ones I was rewriting. And
yeah,
you'd get communication all the time from editors, and I loved it. I loved that because I like
yeah,
people.
yes,
But with a book, you sit down and you write 80,000 words and you don't have any communication with the editor until the end.
right,
And it's not as good. It's not as good fun.
yeah. Do you still write short stories for
Yes,
anthologies? I suppose you're probably asked you to do charity anthologies and
not
things.
so much. Because I'm still on my weekly and people's friends lists.
Mm,
Well, my weekly's got a list, people's friend is open.
right.
I still write short stories for my weekly now and again. And occasionally they ask for one of the annuals.
Right, yes.
And I like it. If someone asks me to do something,
Yeah.
I can do it. But if I otherwise the time goes by because I don't write so many short stories. Obviously these days, I've sold 2,000 short stories. By the way, that's roughly the amount because I worked it out once a long time ago, and I thought that's good. That's quite good. That's probably enough.
Right. And they say there are only certain amount of plots, but I could literally write a short story every day. I'd have no problem.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
I always get it the wrong way around. There are certainly 82 in that one. I mean, they're
yeah.
500 words upwards. I think there were 200 and something, 250 something in that one.
Wow,
And I wrote
brilliant.
one a day for a year and a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Time off in between. But
It's a
yes, I'm
small.
so lucky. I have so many ideas that I could write a short story every day. And I never planned on being a novelist because I like writing like you. I like writing something and then it's done and then moving on to something else. But I do enjoy it. I write a mix of serials and standalones, and I love them both for different reasons.
One of the reasons I became a novelist, partly is because the short story market went, and I would rather do anything than go and get another job that wasn't writing related.
Mm.
Um, I wouldn't have wanted to go back into industry. And to be honest, I don't think anyone would have me because I'm too old.
Right.
But I decided, but there was two reasons. One, the short story market had gone, so there was no choice. And the
Mm,
other reason was, I don't know if this happens to you, but I used to so often I'd be somewhere and someone would say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I say, "Oh, I write short stories." Well, I'm a writer. And they say, "Do you write books?" And I say, "No, I write short stories." And they would turn their nose up a bit and say, "Oh, you're
right.
not a proper writer then."
Yeah.
That was the whole attitude, and it really annoyed me.
Yeah. Well, the first question after what do you do? And I say, well, I used to say, according to HMRC, I'm a writer. So now I've dropped that. I say I'm a writer and editor and teacher. Um, and they said first, the next question I get asked is, would we have heard of you?
Yeah,
And there
yeah,
are so many top authors who make a living. Yes, if you're a reader, you would have heard of Frederick Forsyth, but people hear of films. If
yeah,
if you say to the average, have you heard of The Day of the Jackal, for instance, especially now with the more recent TV series,
yeah,
but how many people on the street would be able to say who it was written by?
yeah.
So even top authors, I go, well, unfortunately, I'm not J.K. Rowling, um, but no, nobody would have heard of me. Um, but there are Suzanne Collins. Everybody knows the Hunger Games, but how
Yeah.
many people, unless you've either read it or you're in the industry, or according to a scammer the other day, Suzanne Collins. She pretended to be Suzanne Collins and couldn't even spell her own name correctly. So I had an interesting conversation with that person. Oh, it was a typo. Oh, but your email address says Suzanne Collins 4531 or whatever it was at gmail.com. And so I have a really sarcastic reply that I send to them. And every time I get a new one, so I have Malcolm Gladwell the other day. I have had J.K. Rowling, Suzanne Collins, Danielle Steele, I've had as well, and a couple of others. And one I messaged the other day because it felt vaguely sincere,
Mm,
and it was as a fellow writer really interested in your process. But they picked one of a garden themed diary, um, to ask questions about when he's a crime writer, and I kind of think.
mm,
That's a bit weird. It felt very AI. So I went
yeah,
on the Real Writers website and said, just thought you should know I've
mm,
received this claiming to be from you, and I'm checking that it's not you. So I haven't replied to that one yet, but I'm sure it won't be. I'd
mm.
be very surprised if, because I say they've got nothing better to do with their time than contact people nobody's ever heard of. I said writers have a tough enough life without people lying to them.
Yeah. Mm,
And so I just copy and paste this and send it back and then block them. And then I know if they come through blocked that I've already emailed them and I don't bother again. But it's quite fun just winding them up a bit. But there we go. So whenever you finish a book, who's your? I'm guessing you have quite a comprehensive beta reading team. Who's the first person to see your
I
book?
don't have any beta reading team. The only person that sees my books before my editor these days, because obviously I send them to her,
The old
is
Tracy.
my partner.
Right.
And he said, like when we first met, we've been together 8 years, I think, maybe nine. He said he doesn't like reading woman authors because they're too like flowery, airy fairy.
So he gets to read all of yours.
It's quite
Is it?
funny because he's also the first person who was ever the first partner I've had that's ever I was married for a long time and no one else has ever read my books. No partner.
Really?
Not all of them. He reads as
Right.
soon as I write one, he wants to read it. If I write
How
anything,
lovely.
he wants to read it. And I
Right.
really value his input because
Yeah.
he doesn't say much, but he'll often say things like, "Oh, well, that car wasn't out then," or
Uh,
don't see
I've
them as
had
that
that
kind of
before.
yeah,
Yes,
that
I
kind of
used a
thing.
Hummer for a story in 1999. So I
Oh,
just I just changed it to be a sort of a non-specific uh,
yeah. Yeah, so he's
whatever
really
it is
helpful.
slash
But
car.
other than him, I know longer send than 21. There's no point because I have an editor at Boldwood and I cannot second guess her. I
Mm,
have absolutely no idea what she's going to say. And we've been working together on 14 books
mm,
and I still don't know what she's going to say. So
wow.
it's pretty pointless giving them to someone else because
Yes. Yeah,
They
no, that
might
makes sense. You're
they
lucky
do.
because Tim loves sci-fi and some crime. Mick, he loves Mick
Hmm.
Herron, the Slough House, Gary Oldman. Oh, we have a dog. Is that a dog?
Oh, yes, there is one
Oh,
just
oh
asleep
yeah,
behind me.
mine's still down there, so he may surface, but you won't see him because he's not tall enough.
He should be
Um,
tired, hopefully.
oh, and so the only book he's ever read of mine, he's very supportive, but the only book he's ever read of mine is O. Henry, and that was because it was on a free KDP. So I said, "Oh, well, download it," and then because it always looks good if people download them. I said, "Download it and let me know what you think." And when you're sitting in bed there and I'm kind of supposedly reading a writing magazine, waiting for him to laugh or
Yeah,
have some kind of reaction, and you get the odd laugh. And it's a sort of I think it's a funny dog detective. Um, but yes, it's really not his. I think he was doing it just to be, but he reads voraciously.
mm,
So I have started a sci-fi novel, but because really it's about the character and the setting
yeah,
and the plot.
yeah.
So I can. So he will give me the technical detail. I can write it, and then he can tweak it thereafter. Um, but no, you're lucky that. But yeah, as you say, you have your editor.
Yeah, and before that, I mean, the other thing that Gordon does is he likes plotting. So we do occasionally. He loves plotting. So we'll occasionally I'll ask for his help when I'm plotting something. Or also if I've got to do maths, I'm not very good at maths.
Right.
Or like family trees and dates, I'm not very good at those either.
Yeah.
He's very analytical and mathematical and very clever, and he'll help me work those out. But before him, I did send my books out to other people, and usually writers who were friends. So we would do a book swap.
Sure.
And I wrote one book, and it might have been the first one, I think it was Passing,
Yeah.
which was originally called Passing Shadows. And I sent it chapter by chapter to my friend Jan Wright in the Isle of Wight. I'm
Mm,
sure that's how I did it.
right.
And that kept me going.
Yeah.
And I think I dedicated it to her.
Right.
Um,
Nice.
but was it that one? I can't remember which one it was now, but one of them I did. And it's really helpful to have beta readers for sure.
No, absolutely. Because it's like this Hummer. I
Mm.
knew it was set
Yeah,
in 1999. As an editor myself, I
yeah.
should have picked up on that. But you
Can't
are
have
too
done it ever.
close to, yeah.
Mm.
So I have an editor for my stuff.
You really need one. I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely wouldn't. If I was self-publishing again, I would definitely get an editor, because Boldwood are brilliant. They have so my editor is a structural editor. She does the structural edits.
Mm,
Then I do what she says, and then I send it back, and then it comes back to me. It gets copy edited next,
mm,
and then I send back the copy edit what
mm.
what they say. I'll obviously have
Sure.
the last word, and
Yeah.
then it gets proofread finally, and then I get to check the proofread as well. So they
Mm.
are really on it. So three edits. Each book has a three edited
They're
version.
prolific. I mean, no wonder that they're closed most of the time, because they're on Instagram. They have a brilliant marketing team, and I
They
think
do.
I would only go traditionally published if I knew that the publisher was really hot on
Yeah.
marketing, that they were out there all the time. Otherwise, what's the point? If you've got to do it all yourself anyway, then really, what's the point of having a publisher if they're not supportive of?
They are amazing. They can do
Yeah,
far more than I could ever do. I mean, we
yeah,
we have to provide content, obviously,
sure,
and have social media,
yeah.
and I do use social media quite a bit, but
Mm.
it's not my favorite thing to do. I'd rather be doing the writing.
Oh, absolutely. And wouldn't they rather you do the writing? Because
Yeah.
otherwise, if you have a 4 book deal. You're saying earlier on that you have a 4 book deal at a time. And Mick Herron's the same. Because Tim loves his books, so I
Mm.
took him to Buckingham Literary Festival where Mick was doing a talk. And he said that he does every now and then they'll run something past him, but they have their own social media on his behalf,
Yeah.
because they want him to write the books.
Yeah.
And really, if you're spending all your time on marketing, then it's taking away time from doing what we love.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
is the writing. So your latest baby is we were talking earlier on, which I hadn't realised, is a reworking of Ice and a Slice, which I
Yeah.
know from back in the day. Do you have got copies there to show us? Have a look at your your
Yes,
covers.
I've got the. It's interesting actually because this is the original cover is this,
Mm,
which is very different, and it actually came out again. You might, I don't know if you can tell, you might not be able to see, but this is the only copy I've got left of this,
right.
and I'd actually put little notes all over it that says things. They say things like Sunday Times #1 bestseller. It
Wow.
wasn't, by the way, but this is
Okay.
a visualization process for me
Right.
and have it
Right.
on my bookshelf and to see that. I've forgotten
Yeah.
I even did that until I found this the other day. This
Wow.
came out in, I self-published this in 2013, I think it was. Although I wrote it in 2006, and I nearly sold it. I couldn't quite sell it. It got as far as acquisitions at Macmillan, and they didn't buy it in the end because it's
Right.
about a woman who's an alcoholic.
Mm.
And they said it would interview, they said it might upset the advertisers in Tesco's. That's what they said.
Oh.
And I was so sad because this came so close to being, published by one of the big ones, and
But
it wasn't.
how times have changed, because we have books about, and the magazines have changed. So back in the day, you couldn't be divorced really,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and so they didn't touch on certain topics.
certain subject.
Whereas I was really quite surprised reading, probably almost a decade ago, reading a quite a horrific story in I think it was Women's Weekly, and
Mm,
I was really surprised that they'd gone
that
almost from
far.
one end of the
Mm.
spectrum to the other. Gritty. I think that
Yeah.
was about drug use, actually, something
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
it's always been done. I mean, this is the revamped Boldwood produced version, and it's the
Mm.
title has changed. It does say that it was originally Iceland Slice. Quite a bit of it's changed because I had to update it because obviously this has come out now, and that was then, and there's a few differences. Um, but what was I going to say? Oh yeah, also there's a couple of things in here where some of the characters are a little bit, they're not very nice, one or
Right.
two of them. And my editor said, "Don't you think these people should get their comeuppance in this book?" And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea.
Mm.
Not that I was going to argue with her. So it has a couple of slightly different things than it did the first time round.
Mm.
And I had such fun changing it and writing it. And also because I love the main character, SJ, her name is. I
Right.
absolutely loved that character who's,
Sarah Jane.
yeah, Sarah Jane, but SJ,
I used to
everyone
work
would
with
know.
an SJ. Or she was an EJ, actually. She was Emma Jane.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so she was known as EJ.
And I loved her, and getting back into her head was amazing. I actually did a blog about it, a little talk, basically saying what's it like to revisit a book that you wrote so long ago.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was the best fun. And my editor also she wanted me to take 10,000 words out of it and add in two new plot lines. So it's
Okay.
changed enough because they wanted
Yes.
it shorter because books are a little bit shorter these days.
Right. Right.
So that's the one that's just
Mm.
come out actually. And
And
it's
it's
doing really
quite different
well.
because I know you've got a couple of other covers there. It's
I
quite
have.
different from your duck series,
Well, yeah.
two series. Your duck
Right. Well,
pond
let
and
me
puddle duck.
show you. Yes, I'm into ducks. Well, Boldwood are.
Yeah,
This one is Coming Home to Puddle Duck Farm.
that's lovely.
This is about a New Forest vet. So yes, I do based a lot of books in Dorset, but this one's actually in the New Forest, and it's Phoebe Dashwood, who's a New Forest vet, and it's her adventures. Her romantic life is a bit turbulent. And the vet side of it's not. The vet side's quite good, but the romantic side is a bit turbulent. So that's what that's about. And she it's a love triangle as well. There's her childhood sweetheart who's Sam, the postmaster's son, and there's Lord Rufus Holt who lives next door. He's a landowner, and it's like which of them is she going to end up with? So that's that one. And then there's six of those at the moment, and then I thought the sixth one would be the last one. And Paul said the other day, "Oh no, we're having another one of those." So there might be another one of those.
Okay.
In the meantime,
But
they said
readers want you to carry on, don't
they,
they?
yes, they do. And I thought, what else can I write? Because
Right.
they're basically rom-coms. So they've got to have romance and they've got to have comedy.
Mm.
And the
Yeah.
animals provide so much comedy. I love animals, and I always wanted to be a vet when I was a
Oh,
child, and I never made it to be a vet. But writing
right.
about being a vet is the next best thing.
Absolutely.
This one is they decided that this would have a duck reference as well. This is Summer Secrets at Actually, that's not the first one. Hang on, let me show you the first one. This is the first one. A new arrival at Duck Pond Cottage.
Oh yes.
Now, that book is actually a revamp also of my very first book that came out, Passing Shadows, and it ended up being a series. I love going back to this one
Right.
because again, this changed quite a bit. And because it has a crossover with the Puddle Duck one, which
Mm,
originally, of course, I'd never written, so I couldn't have done that. And now
sure.
it does.
Mm,
And then I'm on number 3 of these. Where's the second one? Oh yeah, Summer Secrets. That's the middle one. This is about an animal sanctuary, and again, right, a subject after my own heart because I would have loved to have had an animal sanctuary, and I haven't. I've got a tiny little cottage with 2 dogs and 1 chicken.
right. Yeah, we have visions of because we'd like to move to Dorset or Devon because Tim loves Cornwall and I love Sussex, so we're kind of going Cornwall way, but not that far.
Oh,
And his sister lives near Reading, so it's wherever we can afford when the time comes. That's not too far away from there.
this
But
one's
in another
Wiltshire
part of the
actually.
world,
Again, this
right?
one because it's based on. I used to help out at what is now the Dogs Trust in
Oh yeah,
Salisbury,
yeah,
and it's the setting is there, so it's literally there. Although I haven't called it the Dogs Trust, I've called it something else, but
sure, sure.
that's where it is. And I
Oh.
have got a Dorset one though. Hang on, just so that we are in Dorset as well. This
Ah,
is
yes.
on the
And
Isle of Purbeck.
is
This
that a
one.
standalone? That one?
No, that's also a
Okay,
series of
right.
5.
Yeah. So
This is a hotel
what will
about a
happen
hotel.
when you come to the end of the Duck series? Have you got others in mind?
Well, the duck ponds. I've just written the third one, and on the third one, there's a massive crossover with this book, which is all about a hotel on Ballard Down. There isn't a hotel on Ballard Down in Dorset.
Hmm.
Which is overlooking Old Harry Rocks. But
Right.
this is a hotel series, and there's 5 of these. And this hotel is based on my parents' hotel. They used to have a hotel.
Hmm.
And there's a big crossover. So some of the characters in this one are in
Oh, I
the
love that.
Duck Pond Cottage one.
Yes.
I love it too. It's
Yes.
so complicated though, Morgan. Honestly, I have to keep massives of notes and spreadsheets and series Bibles to keep track of it all.
And do your? I mean, you've just mentioned spreadsheets. I'm a real Excel nerd.
Me too.
Are you more of a computer based writer, or do you do anything by hand? Because I know you'll know Jill Mansell well, and I remember seeing her do a talk at Chipping Norton
Mm.
where she brought out a piece of wallpaper and she writes on the back of she pins up the wallpaper and sketches things out on the back of. I don't know if she still does that, but
Well, I've got a map of the
right,
place, because it's a 7 acre place with lots of outbuildings, and I needed to have a map of it. And it's that's on paper. It's
right,
literally very roughly drawn out with little. It's on a like a double, a great big. I'm not sure what the size is. It's huge anyway,
right.
and it's got like little yellow post-it notes stuck on for the various buildings to make
Yeah.
sure that I don't get it wrong.
And do you have a map in the books?
No,
Right,
I don't actually. I kind of describe it each time so
mm,
people know where they are. But no,
right.
that's a good idea though, actually.
Because I mentioned in it was I think it was the evening we did 2 parts of plotting and pantsing because we had
Mm,
11 no 9 panelists in the end. So I did one
mm.
in 9 o'clock in the morning, another one 9 o'clock in the evening. And I mentioned, I think it was in there, it might have been in the last spotlight. I mentioned about reading Kate Atkinson's, I think it was Monday evening. Kate Atkinson, I did a 3 week, there was a fortnight in between course on Kate Atkinson's first 3 books. So the first
Okay.
one was behind the scenes at the museum. The
Yeah.
second one was human croquet. And the third one, part of the reason why I did the course was because the third one was a collection of short stories called Not the End of the World. So I read that first and then read Behind the Scenes at the Museum. And Behind the Scenes at the Museum is through the eyes of I think she's a teenager, of the daughter. And she talks about in almost in every chapter, there's a different either grandmother or great grandmother or going back in time. And it's all her family tree. But there was no family tree in the book. So I
Mm.
ended up drawing one to keep track because I was doing it for a college course trying to keep track of all the the maternal line, going from her to her mother and
Yeah,
backwards.
it's hugely important. I do have
Mm,
that situation in one of them. Oh, that's in the Rufus Holt one. That's in the Puddle Duck books because
mm,
um there was this there was something that had happened like two generations earlier that was critical to the book. So I had to go back and work out the generations to make sure that I got it right and also that it remained the same throughout
mm.
because the he'd lost some land two generations earlier. One of the family, one of the lords, had actually gambled away some land, which had ended up being where she has her vet surgery next door.
Okay.
So, and I needed to know this all the way through, otherwise, and exactly what the names and everything. It gets incredibly complicated considering something's made up and it's
Yes.
imaginary people.
But there will be people who go, ah, yes, but in book two you had such and such, and now it's
Exactly.
this, and there'll always be somebody. This is why editors are so important,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because I say I edit for the 100th reader, because 99 readers won't notice, but there'll always be one who does.
That's
So
brilliant.
it
I love
sounds
that.
sounds like up to a point you are a plotter. I mean, you have your series, so that will help that you already have a cast of main characters and the location. How much do you plot before you start writing the next book?
I can tell you that it used to be zero
Right.
and now it isn't.
Okay. Yeah,
Now,
I
now
say
it,
I say the more I write, the more I become a plantster.
yes,
So I get some
absolutely.
framework, and then because I find if I don't plan anything, I have so many points where I've written more here that I have to go back to because I don't know what happens next.
Yes, you're
But I
right.
know a later point, so I write the later point, and then it just takes so much longer to then go back through it all to fill in the gaps than if I'd written some kind of framework in the beginning.
Similar. I mean, these days it's very specific what I do. I start with a blurb. You know,
Right.
literally, I start with the blurb on the back of the book, and
Yeah.
I write the blurb, and I'll expand the blurb out, and I pretty much then, when my editor then says, "Can you do this?" Well, they call it the sales copy at
Mm,
Boldwood. She'll say, "Can you do the sales copy?" Well, I already done it because I did it for the original. And then what I'll also might do, I probably don't do any of that these days, actually. I just literally do a blurb, expand out, and then I'll have it in my head roughly where I'm going to be because of the length of the blurb and the length of the book. So halfway through the blurb, I should be halfway through the book, kind
okay.
of. And
Yeah,
then
that'd be
I
good.
might expand out to a little bit more of a synopsis than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely a planster.
But you'd think by book 14 or book 14 for Boldwood anyway,
Mm,
that
mm.
it's become second nature to you know how much you need at certain points.
Not really. I remember it's quite so I'm getting better at it, I think, I
Right.
hope. When I started writing serials, because just jumping back to serials, I started with short stories and then I decided I did a book, but it wasn't very good.
Mm,
So then I did serials because serials was an interim stage, like 1,000 word short story, 2,000 words. And then a serial was about 25. And then the book's obviously 80. And I thought, well, if I write a serial, it'll be easier to then, to write a book.
mm,
And I can remember it very, very clearly, Gaynor Davis, who was the editor of Women's Weekly then, saying how many people couldn't write serials because of the pace was so different
right.
from either a novel or a short story.
Mm,
And for me, when I wrote my first serial, which wasn't accepted, but the first one that was accepted, it was very much a panster kind of thing. And then the second and third, I felt like on the second, I was in a dark house. This was how the process felt. And I was feeling my way around. And by the third one, the lights were on. And I kind of knew where I was going in this
yeah.
house. This was
Yeah.
the pace of this series. And it's exactly the same with novels. I have much more of a clue, but it's only from practice. I don't think you can learn this stuff apart from practicing it.
Mm. Well, when I get a book in, if I'm working for a client, I get a book in, I catalogue. First thing I do is catalogue the lengths of the chapters because I
Oh
always
yeah,
recommend having no more than 2,000 words per chapter. And
yeah,
these days, chapters have got smaller. And
yeah.
if anybody goes, "Oh no, they've got to be more than 2,000," I say, "Well, look at a James Patterson because the average James Patterson's about 75,000 words. He has 140 chapters in his
Wow.
book." and look how popular he is. And he goes, I mean, it is a different kind of book, obviously, because it's a thriller, but he goes from the detective to the villain to the detective to the villain. So you're, and I've only ever read one of his in one go, and that
Mm.
was him and Michael Letwidge, Step on a Crack. And you're like this at the end of a chapter, and I was exhausted by the end of it, because you are at the
Too
end of the
much.
chapter, you're going like this. So I think that was too much. Um, but I say, well, people these days, if you're either on a Kindle or in a paperback, if they flick through and go, okay, only
Yeah,
another six
yeah,
pages,
yeah.
then I'll, and you're just one more chapter, and that's what you want. You want a page turner. And if there's one Graham Hurley, lovely guy, great writer, but I think his first book, it was certainly an early book called Nocturne. I mean, no publisher would publish it in that format now, but it had 300 and something pages. It was the old 5 by 8 tiny print,
Hmm.
and it had 3 chapters in that book,
Wow.
and it was a thriller. And I didn't read every single night, so I had to go back so much to remind
Mm.
myself what was
Yeah,
happening. And because there were no natural chapter
great. Yeah.
breaks, then it was hard work. I did carry on going, but I think these days, and we were talking about that on Monday, how long do you give a book before you go, no, okay, I give up, move on to
Not
the next
long.
one? No,
Millie
not these
Millie
days.
Johnson does it as well. She's a women's fiction writer, and sh her chapters are sometimes less than a page.
Yes,
And I
I
think
love short
it
chapters.
works really well. I do my chapters are no longer than 2000,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're 1200 because that is what suits the chapter.
Mm.
And what's I going to say about that? Oh, yes, about how long do you give a book? I mean, I personally, I tend to read on an iPad on a Kindle app.
Mm.
And so what I do on every single book I ever buy, I get a sample,
Yes.
and I buy 1 in 6 of the samples that I read, probably because I don't like this. If I don't like the sample, I won't buy the book.
Yeah. No, exactly. I
So
think
it has
that's
to
the great
be,
thing about getting them digitally these days,
yeah.
is that you can try. I do know, well, of all the 4 and a bit years I was teaching for the council up in Northampton,
Mm.
I had two people when I was doing the planning and writing a novel course. I had two people in all those terms who would go into a bookshop, read the first page and the last page, and then for them it was the journey of how you get from
Yeah,
there
okay.
to the end. And everybody else, so I had normally classes sort of 16 to 18, and everybody else in the class would go, oh, no, can't read the ending, can't read the ending. And some people slow down towards the end of
Yeah,
reading a book because they don't want it to, if
I
they've
do.
enjoyed it so much, they don't want
Yeah,
it to end.
I totally get that. I understand that
Yeah,
totally.
yeah. So I think we've talked about everything. Can we just see your, yes, we've got your covers, your 1 in a million, and your, do you think covers have changed over the years? Because yours,
Well,
I think, are very typical. You
these
did say earlier on.
you can
Yes.
see they're written, they're done by the same. I can't remember it. I think her name's Alice, the cover designer.
Okay.
But she does most of my covers and she's superb. She did
Wow.
these, and she also, I think, almost certainly would have done the Puddle Duck ones.
Yeah.
But
I like the font.
this is different territory, different book, different cover designer, and you can,
Yes.
because that's much more serious and issue led
Yes.
than the others.
Yes. Even
'Cause
the font. The font is
yeah,
jolly, jolly and fun on the Puddle Duck.
yes,
More
jolly and fun, and
serious.
that's not jolly and
Yes.
fun, but
Yeah.
it's still funny actually because I quite like humor. It's a bit darker humor.
Right.
And apparently I'm naturally funny. I can't that's what
Okay.
Judith used to say. Like she said, you're just naturally funny. You obviously do, that's
Big
you.
compliment.
And I must admit, I do like it. I have a wry smile. They're sort of wry smile
Okay.
rather than belly laughs, but
Yes.
I
Yeah,
like it when
very
I'm
nice.
reading my books and I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's quite funny. I'm quite impressed with that.
Well, I say I have the 4 E's that we like as a reader. To be educated, so people are learning about, if they're not a
Yeah,
vet, they're learning from your
yeah,
books.
yeah, yeah,
That they would feel some kind of emotion.
yeah,
Obviously in any book we need conflict. So if you like the character, you want them to be okay by the end,
yeah,
and then we want to be entertained. You've just said
yeah,
that. and then have some form of escapism.
Oh, love
Either,
it.
either um, if you've got a character who's hanging on off a building and you think they're about to drop, um, then their life is worse than yours. And if you're having a tough day, you read a Della Galton because
Thank you. I love, you're right. And I love the four E's. I'm going to write those down, but the humor comes from different places as well. In this one, I've got a conspiracy theorist, eccentric chef called
right,
Mr. B. And
yeah,
lots of people have written to me about him, and I adore him so much that I had to bring him back into and
oh
I brought him back
good,
to the Duck Pond Cottage series because
oh good,
he's hilarious and I want
yeah,
him to have a book of his own. Anyway,
yeah.
sorry, I'm digressing,
No,
but
it's good. So I love that. That
humor.
I used to be involved in the H.E. Bates. It doesn't run anymore,
Oh
but the
yeah.
H.E. Bates short story competition. Did you judge that?
Yes.
What you did, didn't
Yes.
you?
Once.
When we
Yeah.
went to the little theatre in Malton. In the yes, well, I think the year before or just a year after you, Katie Ford was our head judge,
Wow.
and I'd read. I can't remember. I don't know if it was Finders Keepers or another one. It was about a woman who had been made redundant, the bookshop closed, and she'd then been asked to set up a literary festival for the village.
Hmm.
And there was an Irish author they wanted, so she had to go over to Ireland, persuade this author to, of course, they're going to end up together. And I can't remember the main character's name, but I loved her sidekick called Monica. And so when
Okay.
I met Katie then, I said, "Oh, I really loved this book, especially Monica." And she said, "Oh, I loved writing Monica as well." And I said, "Would you make her the main character in another book?" She said, "I'd love to do that." I don't know whether she's ever done it. I've not seen her since. But I love the idea of characters in the third Kate Atkinson book, Not the End of the World. There's a lady in an Audi. There's her and a policeman, and then I can't remember which way round it is, but we only get a little bit of her in one of them, and
Mm.
then she's a main character
Yeah.
in another one, and I love that.
I love that as well.
And in After Jessica, there's a thug called Rick, and he has great fun. He likes winding people up, and in one of them, he breaks into, doesn't actually break in. He picks the lock and gets in, and he leaves a book in a bowl in the sink,
Hmm.
and that's all he does. I mean, he's looking for something, but the house is untouched, other than this
Hmm.
book in a bowl in a sink. And then he goes again. So when then the person who comes home and finds this book in a bowl in a sink and freaks them out.
I'm not
Um, and,
surprised.
and so it's just, I had such fun with him.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to make him a main character in something else.
Do it. Do
That
it.
was a standalone, that one, because it has a start, middle, and definite ending. But yeah, I'd like to do that to bring him back.
Oh, yeah, it's brilliant fun. The best fun.
Yeah,
I mean, once
isn't
you've
it?
created a character, why would you want to let them go? I
Yeah.
love my characters. I love them.
Well, this is why agents, publishers, and readers love series,
Yeah.
and they don't want them to end. So, and Boldwood have asked you to do more than you were anticipating.
Yes, I never knew at the beginning that if they were going to go on and on and on. I just thought, oh, three, probably three. I could do
Yeah,
three of a series, no
yeah,
problem. And then it's, what can you do a fourth one? What can you do a fifth one? What can you do a
yeah,
sixth one? And
yeah.
I believe they've got some things out on Amazon saying I'm going to do a seventh and an eighth, and I haven't
Okay,
agreed to this.
okay. Well,
But
you've got
bring it
two books.
on.
So, what is it? The fifth and the sixth that you're the remaining two in your just yeah, duck
Well, I'm
pond.
not sure. I might have another one coming out this year, which is the sequel to One in a Million, actually, because and I've also got another one in the pipeline that's a completely separate series that I've already written and has
Okay,
been structurally edited. And that's called The Vintage Girls. That's something else again.
okay. I'll have
It's not
to
called
read.
that actually. It might be called something else, but
Right,
that's one of the,
working
it,
title. Yeah,
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 working title.
yes.
So I don't
Oh,
know
wonderful. Well,
quite what's
long
going to
long may Della beep beep Galton
Oh,
continue.
now
Well, it was
you know
one
how
beep.
difficult
It
it
was one
was.
beep actually, starting with B and ending in Y.
But
We,
Morgan, now you know how difficult it is, and it always
oh, I
is. And
do. Absolutely. Well, I say if I'm ever an overnight success, it's 20 years this year, actually, last year, that I started this journey more seriously,
yeah,
2005. And so I just, I'll be a 25-year overnight success.
Well,
I don't
bear
know.
in mind, I got my first thing published in 1987 in a magazine. So
Yeah.
that's nearly 40 years coming up.
Wow. Wow.
Luckily, I started young because obviously I was only 6 then. Not.
With your story that yes, you can't get back.
Yeah,
Can't find. Maybe one day. Maybe you never know. Publisher might be reading this, or somebody might be watching this and not reading this, watching this, and
that
go, oh,
story. I know
it's
it
that
was called
woman.
Second Chances and
Oh,
it was in Loving magazine. So if anyone out
yeah.
there's got one, I'd love to see
Yes.
that. And I can
Yeah.
remember the last line of it, but I cannot. And I can remember what the story's about, but
Right.
obviously
Rework it for your pleasure when you have a day
it
spare.
wouldn't be
Do that.
PC anymore.
No.
That's for
Okay.
sure. But maybe it would. I don't know. Maybe it'll come round again. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, it's
Thanks
been a
so much.
pleasure. So you're carrying on these two series and the Vintage Girls. So plenty to keep you busy. So what do you do when you're
Yeah.
not immersed in the literary world? Apart from
I
walking dogs, you have two dogs.
sleep. No,
And you're
I
teaching.
walk. I see I've got a few very close friends who I see a lot I'll tell you what else I do actually. I've recently taken this on. I've got my dogs, but I'm a volunteer for Eye in the Sky Lost Dogs Search, which is a drone
Oh,
company, because my little dog went missing last year for
I
two
saw that
days
on I saw that on Facebook
and
that
they found
you're
her.
missing.
And
Yeah.
I volunteer for them. I've been on about 5 searches looking for other people's dogs, one of which we didn't find, the rest of which we found.
Yeah.
So that's what I do in my spare time when I've got time, because obviously dogs go missing whenever, and they just call
Yes.
for volunteers, and we go out if we've got the time.
Wow.
So
Well,
it's all-
apart from the fact that we've had Gus since he was 5 and a half, he's 14 and a half now. And he panics if he starts following somebody else and
oh
then realizes that it's not us. He panics because he's a third-hand rescue. So two people. I think I know that the second lot of people were 6 months. So I like to think that the first lot had him for 5 happy years and just changed the circumstances.
yeah, yeah.
But he panics if he loses sight of us.
Oh, bless him.
But he's got cataracts in both eyes, and so it'll get to the point where, and he's off the lead most of the time, unless we're on the
Mm,
main road. And
mm,
he's very good. He ignores actually most other dogs. He'll have a quick sniff. They do their circle, and then he'll wander on.
mm.
So he's no trouble. But yes, I think his eyesight. We have to clap now or
Oh,
call him because he's also getting a bit deaf. But wouldn't you at 100 and whatever,
yeah.
14 and a half works
Oh,
out to
he
be
sounds lovely.
in dog years. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure. We
Ditto.
will we
Thank
will
you.
have to talk more. And yes, I'm looking forward to being involving you in Self Pub Fest when you
Mm.
self publish again. Your writing book. It sounds like I don't, obviously not for short stories these days, but your 28-week plan sounds like it could be a book
Ha!
in a different guise,
Yes, well, but I have got quite
variation
a
of
good
it.
business head because I come from that kind of background. So
Mm,
I think that helps. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, think about
good.
that then.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Morgan.
No
Been a
worries.
pleasure.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye for now. Bye.